Celebrity Book Club. Who's that knocking at the door? It's all your friends, you filthy whore. Your husband's gone and we've got books and a bottle of wine to kill.
It's Hollywood.
It's books.
It's gossip.
I'm shook.
It's memoirs.
It's martinis.
It's Studio 54.
It's Celebrity Book Club.
Come read it while it's hot.
Celebrity Book Club.
Tell your secrets, we won't talk.
Celebrity Book Club.
No boys are allowed.
Celebrity Book Club.
Say it loud and proud.
Celebrity Book Club.
Buzz me in, I brought the Cuervo.
Hey, best friend. Hey, good fine sir over there in New York City.
Oh, hello, good fine sir. I notice you're not in your cool Ridgewood office with the matching grommeted curtains that I have for soundproofing. I notice there's a beautiful painting of a ship behind you, sir. And is that a pond?
Yes.
Long pond?
It is a beautiful landscape of a pond. You are seeing many framed artifacts. Of course, I have traveled back to 1842. I am at what was essentially the economic center of the world, the locus of the whaling industry in the 19th century. I am referring to the island of Nantucket.
How does the poem go? There once was a man from Nantucket.
Whose fleece was...
He's something.
I feel like it's one of those, like, it's a naughty limerick, but I don't quite recall what...
It's like, and then he sat on his tucket. By and by, he, went to the river, and his liver did pry.
Yes, his liver was quite not happy with what he was doing over there on the island and in the several ponds and all the adjacencies. I feel like I didn't really grow up, knowing that limerick. Obviously, I did not grow up on the island, unlike Meghan Trainor, one of my heroes, who is the most famous person to ever come out of Nantucket. Since the beginning of time, it was Ishmael and the Moby Dick folk, that crew, and then Meghan Trainor.
You're going to be hearing more about Nantucket and our tips and tricks to kind of how to guide yourself through the island in the VIP lounge, by the way.
Today's VIP lounge is going to be Stephen and Lily's Nantucket. The hot spots, where to go, where to get fucked, where to meet guys, where to get the most amazing brunch you've ever had in your life, secret donuts, the best coffee, the weirdest beaches.
The best CBD matcha tincture lattes. Do you remember, and this is the only thing I'll say, do you remember those absolutely psychotic hemp CBD weed lattes we got?
I do, and they made no sense.
And that's why Nantucket is in its second
No, it's absolutely it's totally in its second golden age.
We should get into what book we read.
Hell yes.
We read one of the sassiest books I've ever read in my entire life. None other
than the autobiography of one Benjamin Franklin.
All about the Benjamins, baby.
Hell yes. Inventor, politician,
fireman,
printmaker, yes, local fireman starter, stove maker, ghost general,
forefather,
founding father, ladies man.
Absolute ladies man, also just absolute sassy bitch.
Ribald critic.
Very arrogant, sir. But honestly, reason to be.
Yeah, very arrogant. Absolutely not humble. And let's just say it, a hustler.
Yeah, no, a hustler.
I mean, he really is. This book, it's he invented hashtag Motivation Monday. He
defines Beyonce has 24 hours in a day.
We have this, yes, and so do you. But every page of this book is basically all of those sayings. He truly invented Instagram.
Literally, he's yeah, sorry, you want to play chess with me? Sure, as long as we can speak in Italian and Latin while we're doing it.
Yeah, because everything has to be productive. Sorry, yeah, I'm not going to go waste away my time on superficialities at the tavern house, okay? I'm committed to my life of industry and productivity and temperance, and I will be up at 6, rising and grinding, bitch. And he's always...
No.
I mean, he invented all of these a penny saved is a penny earned. He invented this newspaper, Poor Richard's Almanac, that was this yearly almanac that was just forecasts about the weather, which is okay, well, you're making that up because you don't know what the weather is going to be in July. So,
well, I will argue with that. When he's talking about He also like invented putting out fires, which is I
He can-
totally didn't know.
Okay,
which is
but
crazy.
He is truly.
He's very arrogant.
He
darling.
is so
I'm
up
just like,
his own ass. It's insane because he says he invents everything. He's just like, well, actually, no one had ever literally thought to put out a fire before me, and so I invented the first firehouse and then the first local like volunteer fire brigade, and that's still in effect, and that's why Philadelphia like fires are always like getting put out so much faster than everyone else's fire. And he says that, so he was like, oh, I should mention that I did invent a
oh my god, that part
stove."
was so amazing. So it's like this book kind of Naughtiff is Grant. Like girl goes into detail, but like he does jump around where you're like, okay, you are young and like your father died and was blown away by like a ship the second you were born. And then like
everyone in this book is always going to a Caribbean island and just dying. He's always like, and he went to Barbados where he died. Or just like, and his health was failing, and then he went to the Caribbean and then he died.
that is an epic story about the man who dies in the West Indies, and we'll get to that. Hold on, I just want to say where like he jumps around, and then all of a sudden he's like at the end of a chapter is like, wait, you guys, I really should tell you, I kind of invented a stove.
Hold on, wait. I'm pulling up this line because it's just so okay, wait. So he's talking about the Quakers. Oh, because he was kind of dragging the Quakers for being like so fake about being anti-war when he was.
Oh
just
no,
like,
I love when he dragged the Quakers.
Wait, cause I feel like you know Quakers. Because what his thing is that like they're always like basically the Quaker meeting houses are getting together and they are granting like England the right to like tax them to like send guns to fight the French or the Indians. And like they're basically
Yeah,
like
he was being a little like, I mean, I guess I kind of relate because I am so non-confrontational, but he was like, so let me get this, Quakers. You were like supposedly peaceful, yet you're still giving money for like and supporting the war. Like maybe actually like stand up and say something.
But then the Quakers would always have to like make the resolution some like some other language that obfuscated the fact that it was for war. They'd be like, and we will give 60 pounds shillings for grain and other grain.
Yes.
And like everyone knew other grain meant gunpowder, and everyone was like rolling their eyes with the Quakers having to do this song and dance about their pacifism.
Okay, read this quote and then I want to go off on
Okay,
Quakers.
so he's going off on Quakers, and he goes, in order of time, I should have mentioned before that having in 1742 invented an open stove for the better warming of rooms, and at the same time saving fuel as the fresh air admitted was warmed and entering, I made a present.
Green Queen.
I made a present of the model to Mr. Robert Grace, one of my early friends, who, having an iron furnace, found the casting of the plates for the stoves a profitable thing as they were growing in demand. Like, just like, oh, so by the way, I invented this stove that was like insanely green and actually really useful. And like, I told my friend, and oh, he was making money because they were so popular and everyone wanted one of my stoves. But yeah, I should probably just mention that to you. Can I just say, I usually don't think that stove was that good. And I think he's blowing hot air, so to speak, up his own pipe.
Yeah, bitch, there's a reason why we don't use, even though he, like, it's claimed his stove is used today, there's a reason why we aren't, like, I don't have a fucking Ben Franklin
stove,
like,
yeah.
stove up in my apartment. I have New York City heat.
Yeah.
That blows hard. That's why I'm in my short sleeve women's
Hell yes.
velour corduroy dog button down right now because that's all I need.
Cozied and bozied with that fresh Eric Adams heat. Thank you, Mayor. No, thank you, Ben Franklin. Didn't do shit with his Pennsylvania furnace.
Well, and I'll just say this, whenever you go to Boston, where he's from, it's fucking giraffe-y as all hell in every house.
Well, he was kind of like, he did kind of kick himself out of Boston. And so maybe...
Yeah, he had a little bit of drama there,
Yeah.
as all true massholes.
Yeah.
I do love that he is like, had to fucking leave Boston.
Because his fucking brother...
Oh, my brother. Oh, you think I'm a better printmaker than you? Oh, you think I set better type letters than you? Yeah,
Oh, excuse me.
I'm gonna open up a
my
better
own print
printer.
shop. I'm going to Philly. I'm going to start the best printer that they ever had. And I'm going to make newspapers. And I'm going to make almanacs. What the fuck are you going to do? And his brother's being so, you owe me fucking 200 shillings. You're going to come to me in my house when you owe me 200 shillings?
Don't even talk about our mother when you owe me 200 shillings. I do own a t-shirt made from a screen printer. One of my North Shore beef t-shirts is made from a place called Ben Franklin, like shirt press.
Okay, so they're
yeah.
kind of evoking the original printmaster himself, Ms. Frank.
Exactly. It's also it's like I didn't really put this together after reading it where I was like, you're so arrogant. And it's like, but you're literally on the $100 bill, which is like dope. You're like, yeah, the most braggadocious bitch was like, I think I got the 100 here.
Yeah, no, literally.
Hamilton fallback.
But that's also so him to be like, I feel like he would probably, because he doesn't really get to that. The book kind of just like stops like in the middle of the French and Indian War because he like lost his papers.
Oh, I know. Like, it's very like, this whole book, you're like, are we going to get to the revolution? And then there's one page at the end about the Constitution because he's just so busy bragging about inventing a stove.
He's bragging. I mean, he was, he was founding the country, whatever, I guess. I do feel like
That's a whole nother
That's
book.
another book. I do feel like he wrote, and then it was very just like, the manuscript was sent to France for approval by a separate printmaker. And, of course, it was lost in a horrible shipwreck where everyone died and got cholera.
I just want to say this about when I was learning about Quakers, as I feel like
Was this at your like
growing up
Montessori school where you guys were all like playing with blocks?
Yeah, I actually did not go to a Montessori school, but it was greater Montessori.
Right. Okay. I'm always accusing you of this, but
You're like, oh, you're fucking Montessori school. It's like, get the fuck off my non-Montessori ass, okay? It was much more like there was a printout of like, it actually was very Ben Franklin. There was like a printout of values that were like respect.
that's just like every
humility.
elementary school.
Okay,
I
every
feel it's
school,
just being
okay.
like, be kind.
Be kind. So I remember once we like went to like a Quaker meeting house and like all had to sit on those like old ass benches.
Snooze.
And they were like, the way Quakers met is they just sat there in silence until someone had something to say. Let's say price. And I was like, you're fucking kidding me. This is so boring.
Don't give them a podcast. Be here all day.
This silent as Quaker podcast. Wait.
Okay, I feel like that would be such a like a return to the way things should be. People like this trend of silent podcasts. Just be like, it actually really helps me just kind of zero out and focus.
Go to sleep. And in our crazy hustle and bustle
bombarded
world,
by content and by voices and noises all day. And I love to listen to a silent Quaker podcast.
the way Ben Franklin would be blasting podcasts in his printmaking
my
studio
God.
if he was alive now.
No, it would be
Just
like Radio
Radio
Lab.
Lab. Okay.
No, around the fucking clock and like TED Talks because he's so, I mean, this is why he does kind of suck.
Multitasking.
Because he's constantly being just like, you must be productive at all hours of the day. Idle hands lead to idle days, lead to idle men. Even though he obviously is lying because he loves to just like gallivant and gas and he was like such a womanizer and was always fucking a strumpet at an ale house. I mean, which he obviously doesn't mention in the book.
Hypocrite boots is that right? He like goes on and he's like shaming so many people for drinking too much Madeira wine and as being like the Indians got so wasted on rum and were always banging on my tent for more rum. And it's like, bitch, you brought them the rum. God. Cancel Ben Franklin.
I mean, that party did sound lit, though.
I know. And it was like a fire and everyone's getting like so wasted. And then he talks about how like his breakfasts were only water gruel.
Right.
But then...
Well, because everyone else at the printing house was just like beer for breakfast, beer for lunch, beer for dinner. And they were completely wasted, like printing all these Bibles. And he was just like, y'all are kind of like being a little bit slow and shitty with the type here. Maybe less beer in the morning. And they were like, okay, faggot.
Right. They were just like, oh, you don't want me to drink a Sam Adams? Oh, sorry. You need a Fiji?
Oh, Mr. fucking Fancy. Oh, Ben Fiji over here. Oh, pardon me.
Oh, he needs an Evian. He gets his water imported from France. Excuse
Oh,
me.
Mr. Big Shot speaks French. Mr. Big Shot speaks Portuguese.
The first time his wife sees him, he's walking back from the baker and he's carrying 3 rolls in his hand, but he can't carry all the rolls, so he's stuffing one into his fat ass mouth. And she thought it was such a hilarious sight.
This was Miss Reed.
Yeah, this was Miss
I'm sorry,
Reed.
does this hoe ever get a first name?
Isn't her name Meredith, which is...
There was another guy whose last name was Meredith, who was part of his like squad at one point.
I think I was confusing it.
There was like James Meredith. But I feel like he literally is just like, and then Miss Reed like did get married to an awful Irish potter who was a terrible ceramicist and was very sad and depressed, and it was awful for her, and I felt so bad. But I was off in London, and I wrote her a letter saying that I honestly wasn't coming back because I was having too much fun with my good companions. But then she, like, divorces the Irish guy.
Can I read the part where... Okay. We landed in Philadelphia on the 11th of October, where I found sundry alterations. Keith was no longer governor, being dispersed by Major Gordon. I met him walking the streets as a common citizen. He seemed a little ashamed at seeing me, but passed without saying anything. I should have been as much ashamed at seeing Miss Reed, had not her friends, despairing with reason of my return, after the receipt of my letter, persuaded her to marry another, one Rogers, a potter, which was done in my absence. With him, however, she was not happy, and so parted from him, refusing to cohabit with him or bear his name. It is now being said that he had another wife. He was a worthless fellow, though an excellent workman, which was the temptation to her friends. He got into debt, ran away.
I love that the friends were like, no, girl, his pottery is good.
Yeah. It's like, okay, fuck boy.
No,
like, he's this like badass sculptor who's like, yeah, no, I actually am like really rich. And she's like, okay. And then actually he gets into so much debt.
And her friends are just being like, I don't know, girl, Reed, like, I'm sorry, those pots slap.
Dude, when you see he has good pots. So basically Miss Reed marries this guy. Oh, and by the way, so Ben Franklin wanted to marry Miss Reed, but her parents were like, a printmaker doesn't make any money.
Right.
Like, you can't marry a printmaker. Little did they know my boy would be inventing stoves later on.
Yeah. But then he was like, and I actually didn't sell the patent for the stove, and I could have made a lot of money, but I didn't because I'm like not such a just like whatever money grubbing like sellout. I feel like he said that he could have made more money off the stoves. And it's kind of like...
Right, he's kind of...
But he's very... I mean, so much of this book is him describing, like, the incredible minutia of these, like, long-term loans that he's making with other, like, print house owners.
Prince,
to
I
get
know.
his printing house off the ground. And I'm kind of like, girl, get on with it. But, like... But he basically, like... I feel like when he really starts making money is when he starts literally printing money. Because I think that's, like, a big government contract. And then, lo and behold, he's actually like, he gets involved in the debates around paper money because up until that point, people were still using sterling and like measuring it out in pounds.
So a lot of people were really anti-paper money, and he was being like,
because they thought it was so crypto and
to...
NFTs, and they were like, this is fake.
No, I know. I was like, it's insane. I mean, and this is why nothing was new, and just like paper money was NFTs, and like
and crypto is the future.
And they
this
were like,
episode sponsored by Crypto.com.
Yeah. Robin Hood snacks. Snack on this.
But so he was like printing like little newspapers and pamphlets, so many pamphlets in this book, constantly distributing pamphlets with ideas and conversations to debates of the day.
Okay, zine daddy.
Yeah, absolute zine whore. I mean, there were no tweets. You had to put out a
his
pamphlet.
Call out to like Sterling Hose is that I feel like he was being like, you guys are being so queer exchange and always trading like corn for rum, for fur, for flour.
No.
And he's like, well, what if you just like want money and you don't? Then you have all this corn and you don't even need the corn.
Right. And that was the problem with, you know, the weird thing about sterling, of course, was you were still measuring it by the pound. I mean, this goes back to medieval times. And so and he says, oh, I had 300 pounds of silver for this, or she only had, you know, a pound to her name, or it would be 60 pounds, you know, and kind of just like, we're still sitting around with scales and weights after all this time. Fiat makes so much, it's just so much easier. Hello, people.
Well, and that's how the motherfucking British kept us under their rule. That's right. No taxation without representation. Because
Tea Patty.
Celebrity Book Club.
Hey, Club Kids. Not to be a bully, but I do think you should listen to this week's VIP Lounge because I tell Lily a really insane story about going out on Nantucket. And let's just say it involves me doing shots of warm vodka out of a 7-Up bottle in the back of a pickup truck with a waitress. And that is coming up at the end of the episode. Do subscribe.
I should read his list of like being like a perfect person. So here's what you need to do.
Oh, the insane list of virtues
Yeah,
of how to live. And then he makes that gayest little schedule of how he's doing for each of his virtues.
It's kind of crazy because it's like he's so gay, but in this straight way. Because I know he was like horny for women.
Well, that part just gets so Jordan Peterson, where it's just being like, make your bed.
Right. And you're just like, okay. But I'm like, I don't believe you did any of these things. And then he sent out this chart where he was like, well, there's no way you can do all these amazing things in one day. So like on Tuesday, be humble. But like on Thursday, be like frugal.
Wait, so do you have the list?
Yeah, we can do it every other.
Okay.
1, temperance. Eat not to dullness. Drink not to elevation.
2, silence. Speak not but what may benefit others or yourself. Avoid trifling conversation.
I mean, the amount of times he didn't say someone was trifling.
I know, he's always being like, this trifling ass hoe. And it's just like,
So-
bitch, you're the trifling ass hoe. I know your ass is gossiping around the way all the time.
Like he was always taking like sun-treed walks, like with other like men of thought and women of petticoats.
Yeah, no, but then pretending like he was absolutely the man of most repute in all of Philadelphia.
He was like, well, yes, I was taking a walk, but we were like talking about paper money and like
Which
talking
counts
about
as
cornflower
work
trade.
or whatever. No, I mean, he's
Yeah,
definitely
like,
billing the client like so many hours when he was absolutely not working.
I feel like it's just very general businessman that's like always kind of getting cappuccinos and martinis and steak dinners.
But then do you remember the part though when he was like, but everyone thought I was the hardest worker out of all the 3 major print shops in Philadelphia because I was always just like made sure to like repress the like letters like in the window at night. So people were thinking like, oh, he's late to bed and early to rise. Ben Franklin works more than all the other printers. He's the one to watch.
Bitch is a genius.
Yeah.
You gotta.
And he was like, and
you
you
gotta give
must
it
be
to him.
seen dragging a wheelbarrow full of wet muslin to press the letters in the middle of the day so people know that you do the muslin pressing.
Oh, there's Ben Franklin off to print more muslin. Also, you know, him and his wife were never married. They had a common law marriage. So it was like so woke. They were just like lived together.
Go all the way off.
Modern because she could never get divorced from the sculptor.
Potter.
And then if he came back, she would have been accused of bigamy, which would have served her 39 lashings.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know, those Pennsylvania lashings, they hit hard.
Ooh. Even under all that Muslim petticoats. Okay, so
the list.
Order. Let all your things have their places. Let each part of your business have its time.
That I agree with. It's just like, you know, do your work in the office, make your love in the bedroom.
It's a very no phones.
It's very no phones in the bedroom.
No quills in the bedroom, Miss Reed.
Okay. Resolution. Resolve to perform what you ought. Perform without fail what you resolve. It's like, do what you say you're going to do. Sure.
Frugality. Make no expense, but to do good to others or yourself. I waste nothing.
So you remember the scene where Ms. Reed buys a china bowl and he's so pissed because he has his milk porridge in an earthen bowl every morning. And then he's like, and he says he blames on her. He's like, which my wife bought for me out of no knowledge of my own, thinking that her husband might enjoy a bowl of china. Well.
Right. It's like she's out there trying to make her fat ass man happy. Right. Sorry, I'm not body shaming here. Ben Franklin's body was beautiful, and I would love
our beautiful pear-shaped founding father.
I would love to caress it by oil.
Okay, low-key, all founding fathers are pear-shaped.
Well, as per the script at the end of my book, Ben Franklin literally writes an SNL skit between him and the disease of gout.
He's anthropomorphizing gout as like a character, which is really iconic.
Yeah, being so like, and I'll do some readings from that, but it's like, yeah, I mean, they're drinking beer and
but you know, I feel like everyone had like their outfits were very like the thin legs and then this like Humpty Dumpty lower area, like lower half. They were like all Humpty Dumpty.
It was
shaped.
very fupa.
Everyone was like so fupa.
The other reason why I think he's more pear-shaped and I feel like he is drinking these ales, I also feel like here's the thing about all the founding fathers. Like, all those ales were like the hoppiest IPAs.
Oh, they were super bitter boots. They weren't,
Yeah,
they
like,
weren't
they were
like
like-
pale European lagers.
Oh yeah, I just feel like Bud Light was not happening, or like
I'm
everything was
rolling
like
into a tavern of ill repute, just being like, 1 Bud Light, madame. Madame, keepeth.
And then, sorry, we only have the heaviest. I guess Sam
Yeah,
Adams.
they're like, sorry, we only got Magic Hat, dude.
I mean, I would say Sam Adams is like medium, like, you know what I mean? Is bitter
There's
and
a
hoppy, but
tiny
it's
bit of
not
bitterness.
so heavy.
Yeah, but I mean, I can still
Okay.
drink Sam Adams, so I don't consider it really in that like
Right.
Ditmas genre.
Ditmas / 1600s genre. Okay. Industry. Lose no time. Be always employed in something useful. Cut off all unnecessary actions, which is the whole thing being so like hustle and grind.
Sincerity. Use no hurtful deceit. Think innocently and justly. And if you speak, speak accordingly. It's just like, you are lying,
I don't
bitch.
believe.
He's such like a sarcastic, like joking, jovial biatch.
Calling everyone like a loser Potter and just
Right.
like a poor little filthy like British king.
Yeah, it's like,
I think he's just knowing that, like, because what's also fab about him is he's like not that Christian, and he's so just like, ooh, yeah, no. Obviously, I am so Presbyterian, and he's like, ooh, haven't made it to meeting house.
he's literally
lately."
never going to meeting house. I mean, he does say like, there's one point where he's like, no, and I actually think Christianity is totally good. When I think about it, you think about the principles, like God is like great. Like that really makes sense. Personally, I'm super busy, but I do think God is good. And he like strives to be a religious gentleman.
Okay, let's do
Okay,
these
quickly.
fast. Sincerity,
Justice, blah, blah, blah.
moderation,
Obviously.
cleanliness.
This starts to read like the Scout oath, which you have to say. That's always a Scout is trustworthy, loyal, thrifty, brave, clean, and reverent. Courteous, kind of.
And then again, tranquility, be not disturbed at trifles. And it's like, I feel like you, again, were so disturbed at
No, the
trifling.
one trifle happens and you're like, stop trifling, I'm printing. Okay, then this 12, chastity.
No description under chastity, though. It's like, ooh, you just threw that one in.
Well, mine says rarely use venery, but for health or offspring. Does yours not say
As
that?
in your dick? No,
Yeah.
mine is just blank. I
Oh,
think
so-
it's that thing. And let's talk about printing and public domain for a second.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I
is
wanted
that-
to get into this.
Right. You know, it's now his autobio, his memoir is public domain. So it's like mine is on this insane faux leather-backed edition. And I also feel like maybe it could be more PG, or like they just missed stuff. So it's
I
like
think
my
mine is
chastity
actually
thing.
from 1891. Like, I think mine is very old. It was purchased for me at like a rare bookstore. And I read a Twitter thread recently that said books made before like 1910 are actually way higher quality and will last forever, because that's before they started making them with like this really cheap paper that has like acid in it that's just like deteriorating all the time. Because
Yeah,
mine
dude,
is like
it's like
in dope ass condition.
okay, this cover of its faux leatherness is like how in Boston most people wear like faux weathered t-shirts. We all love like Boston loves kind of a
A distressed. Oh, okay, yeah, now I see it. That's fun for kids to have that sort of texture to touch.
So he says no venereal use. That means like no sex unless
But
it's
for
kids.
health or offspring. So it's kind of like you
Oh.
can do it if
health.
for health reasons.
Yeah. And he does say, he's always like, there was some footnote where he's like, Miss Reed and I did have a joyful marriage.
I'm sure they did.
Okay, so there's this part of the book where he like wrote into his brother's paper under an alias named Silence Dogwood.
Okay, this was so like Ted Kaczynski. Yes.
Yeah, I know. I was like, got so Ted. And he like, sometimes did I read that wrong that he's writing as a woman? Like Mrs. Dogwood?
I don't know if I read that he was doing like gender role play in the letters, but was this at the very beginning when he was like getting his brother's newspaper in trouble for like publishing ribald things that were critical of the local governance?
This was like late. Oh, no. I think this was earlier. I'm honestly not sure on the time of that, but there's just this one part where he goes off on how like women shouldn't wear petticoats and they like waste fabric and also like are distasteful.
Oh, but he's actually, because he wants them to wear less. So he's kind of being like,
yeah.
Oh, all right. He's like advocating for those legs to be out and about. He wants to see them swishing down the cobblestones of Beacon Hill. Hell yes, mama.
Watch that ass shake back and forth on the cobblestone.
Okay, wait. Speaking of women of ill repute, the part where that like old lady on the boat, he's traveling by boat from like Boston to Philadelphia, and it takes just like months. And that older woman like warns him against like spending time with those hussies. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna just read this part. A matron like Quaker woman was on this boat
again. Quakers.
This boat to New York. Therefore, when she saw a daily growing familiarity between me and these two young women, which they appeared to encourage, she took me aside and said, Young man, I am concerned for thee, as thou hast no friend with thee, and seems not to know much of the world, or of the snares youth is exposed to. Depend upon it, those are very bad women. I can see it in all their actions, and if thee are not upon thy guard, they will draw thee into some danger. They are strangers to thee, and I advise thee to have no acquaintance with them. And so then he's like, at first, I seem to not think so ill of them, blah, blah, blah. But then when we arrived at New York, they told me where they lived and invited me to come see them, but I avoided it, which is kind of like, I feel like maybe he did go fuck them. Then the next day, the captain was missing a silver spoon and some other things that had been taken out of his cabin. And knowing that these were a couple of strumpets, he got a warrant to search their lodgings, found the stolen goods, and had the thieves punished. So the old Quaker matron was right. And they were strumpets and they had stolen the spoon.
They were strumpets. I need to use that word way more often.
Women
be strumpets.
Women be strumpets. Women be stealing spoons. If you see strumpet, say something.
Do you remember there was a spoon controversy?
What was the spoon controversy?
With some chefs? We'll talk about that in the VIP.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should.
Okay, I'm just going to quickly read for context this thing about petticoats. Some observations on a particular fashion now reigning among my own sex. So this is him.
Oh, so this is him pretending to be a woman.
Literally pretending to be a woman writing into his brother's
Mrs.
paper.
Doubtfire.
No, he actually is
he
so Mrs.
literally
Doubtfire.
Is Mrs. Doubtfire. He looks exactly like her.
Yeah, I feel like his vibe, it's not gay. It's a little just Robin Williams and that kind of like kooky comedy tootsie, like old school.
Shoulder pads.
Shoulder pads, like Chris Farley in the Gap Girls skit. Real heads no. Okay. The most immodest and inconvenient of any the art of woman has invented, namely that of hoop petticoats. By these they are incommoded in their general and particular calling, and therefore they cannot answer the ends of either necessary or ornamental apparel. These monstrous topsy-turvy mortar pieces are neither fit for the church, the hall, or the kitchen, and if a number of them were well mounted on Noddle's Island, they would look more like engines of war from bombarding the town than ornaments of the fair sex. An honest neighbor of mine, happening to be in town sometime since on a public day, informed me that he saw 4 gentlewomen with their hoops half mounted in a balcony as they withdrew to the wall, to the great terror of the militia.
So he's saying these petticoats are like literally cannons. They're so huge. Please get them off my ramparts.
Yeah, they're like so fucking big.
He sounds like he'd be very anti-peplum.
There was a really freaky girl in my elementary school who would wear like a petticoat to our like holiday recital.
Yeah, that's that's more your high school. That everyone was doing.
I know,
like,
so I guess
cosplay,
again, well, there was also a girl in my high school that did old timey cosplay as well. So
okay, wait. So a couple of things I want to talk about. I do want to talk about. Okay, did you get to the part where he's pro-vax? So he is like,
oh my God, yes, with smallpox. So his son dies of smallpox, and he says his greatest regret is not inoculating his son with his own smallpox.
It was just like, and everyone's worried that like your son's gonna die from getting the like. Was it like self? Is he giving him son a shot? I mean, I know this is the general.
Yeah, I think it would be like self.
Or is he just
it's
like,
basically like
you find someone with smallpox and like rub them on your son a little bit? Like, did they have
Yeah, I
syringes
think it's
back
like
then?
he would have like invented his own little smallpox. Clearly, it was a thing because he says
Right.
that
It was
like
definitely something you could
he would
do.
have
You could like go, maybe
given
you
his
could go to
son.
maybe the local apothecariat and they would like give you a little petri dish and just be like, listen, like put this in your son's like bread porridge and like he will get mild smallpox and then he'll be immune. Because obviously I'm sure there was this anti-vax movement of other Philadelphia parents who were being like, no, A, I'm going to kill my kid with smallpox if I give it to him. Like B, it's going to make him autistic.
I don't think there was a 1600 set of parents being like, it's going to make my son autistic. I feel like the vibe in Philadelphia society was more like, you're going to kill your son by giving him smallpox. Less like
And then he goes,
Jenny McCarthy.
my example showing that the regret may be the same either way, and that therefore the safer should be chosen. He's like, yeah, well, my son still died of smallpox.
Try it.
Try it, bitch.
Yeah, so.
Okay, also, another thing about him is that he's...
You've had chicken pox, correct?
Oh, like as a child?
Yeah.
Huh.
Or are you still like able to get it and will die of it?
Oh, right. And it's very that thing where like everyone's like going to the field trip and they're like, has anyone not had chicken pox? And I'm just like, sorry, never had it. I just like was never around it. And everyone's like, okay, we have to be really, really careful with Steven when we go on the safari.
Super careful.
I honestly don't remember. I think I must have, right?
Oh.
Did you have
must
it? Did you
have.
iconically have it? And you were so like connecting the dots with Sharpie.
Yeah, I got it like from my sister, and I feel like we were such a like gruesome twosome, like covered in spots.
Okay. He also like was a Freemason and invented secret societies and like he's obsessed with his secret club.
He also like invented the library, but
No, he also he claims that he invented the library. It's just like
I guess there must have been libraries
and
in
what's
like
also the electricity
and
is never
stuff.
in this book. P.S.
Well, my version has some, it's so boring though, I could hardly read it, where he's like talking about like grabbing a rod and fire.
Well, because you
and
remember that
lightning and...
anecdote that I heard from someone else that he had the rod like going down connected to the banister in his house, and when like random whores would come over, he would make them like touch the banister and get shocked as like a parlor trick. And he was always shocking prostitutes and just being like, "Isn't that such a gas?" It's like, girl, you trifling.
Wow, so he's actually he's so Elon Musk and is just like this sick inventor
Yeah.
being like, touch my rod.
Literally, he is Elon Musk.
Segment quills. How
What
doth
does
she eat?
What doth she wear?
How does she live?
So, what does she eat? Let's get into it. Girl, he's a pescatarian, which I'm obsessed with. So he starts out as a vegetarian because for moral reasons, which is really cool and ahead of the game. And again, not in a gay way, but just like in this very straight way.
You think pescatarians are gay?
Well, he starts out as a vegetarian. And then he's on this trip. He's on like yet another long ass boat ride. And he's like, I'd formerly been a great lover of fish. And like someone was cooking fish. And when it came hot out of the frying pan, it smelt admirably well. I balanced some time between principle and inclination. So he's sitting there hemming and hawing over whether or not to eat this fish, till I recollected that when the fish were opened, I saw smaller fish taken out of their stomachs. Then I thought, if you eat another, I don't see why we mayn't eat you. So I dined upon cod very heartily and continued to eat with other people, returning only now and then occasionally to a vegetable diet. So he's still anti-meat, but he's just like, well, fish eat other fish. So we Gucci.
Oh, that's also so like Boston dad with high cholesterol.
Right.
To be like, I'll have the steamed cod and baked potato and a Sam Adams light. Thanks. Well, that is the most like Boston thing for like a dad to be like, my one Sam Adams a day. They're like, yes, I drink, but it's like I crack my one Sam Adams, and that is good for
But
me.
here's the thing: his lying, trifling ass about how temperate he is.
No, obviously he's having so much rum
And
Madeira wine.
Madeira
that at one
wine.
point, what is
Madeira wine is
he
mentioned too many times in this book for him to not be drinking it round the clock.
Okay, this wine he mentioned, and I was like, this feels so your family.
Madeira
He
wine
was like,
sounds very port
No.
to me.
He said then also he was like, we had so much claret.
Oh, that is very my family.
Oh, I guess, okay, claret is a way to describe Bordeaux. And he was like,
Oh, is it?
well, the claret was flowing, so oops.
Damn, I gotta get me a bottle of claret.
Yeah, I'm sure your parents have some
I have to say,
claret in their wine fridge that we'll talk about in the VIP
the VIP
lounge.
lounge, we are breaking open my parents' wine fridge, which is, as you may recall, where they keep the gun. I okay, just sidebar, we will get into this in VIP, but I ordered like a Slovenian white last night at Quakers on Nantucket.
Oh, not Queek. Sorry, land acknowledgement boots? Like, I hope they did one.
Okay, but you know that Queequeg is actually the name of like an Asian Pacific Islander character in Moby Dick. So it's not even a Wampanoag name.
I didn't know
So
that.
fall all the way back,
Oh,
Miss Land.
Miss Land.
Anyway, I had this white Slovenian thinking it was going to be so funky and like the funkiest wine in Nantucket, and it was like so sweet, and it was fully apple juice, and it was like
My next book, The Funkiest Wine in Nantucket.
my mom was like, may I? She takes a and she takes a sip and she just goes, well, that's horrible.
Oh, Steve.
She's like, oh, that's horrible. So yeah, just ask. I should have asked the server more about what the palette was.
Well, I think I would have done the same thing where I'm like, Slovenian, you're on Nantucket. You're like, yeah, sorry, I'm different. I'm from New York City. I order Slovenian whites, and then it's just straight up
because
dessert
then
wine.
she brought it out and she put it down. She was like, yeah, so people like this. It's the one of the sweeter wines. I compare it to White Zinfandel, and I saw my mom making like the whites of her eyes when she said White Zinfandel, and I was like, uh-oh, here we go.
Her face turns green. Did you order the bottle or just a glass?
No, just a glass.
Oh,
And then I
honestly,
I switched to Nebbiolo. I was like, you know what? I don't actually want this, and that's okay to do.
So you got a little more claret.
Yeah, when your parents are paying, it's okay to just not drink a glass because you don't like it. And
Absolutely.
Ben Franklin would not
I'm
agree
sorry,
with
I
that.
don't think Ben Franklin would not approve because that's one you're wasting.
It's
'cause
not
they would probably just throw that
frugality,
out.
yeah, and it's not temperance.
Not temperate at all because you're asking for more wine.
It's not humility.
He has this like grocery list at some point that I was kind of like impressed by, where he's like brokering a deal to like in the French and Indian War of what he's sending. them.
What he's like
And-
sending, that part goes on for so long, and it's all about like the wagons sending other wagons of bread to separate wagons.
Right, but it was like he was being so barefoot Contessa. Everything was like really good coffee, really good rum,
No, I'm sorry.
really good beef tongue.
The troops need really good tongue.
Also, in this book is just another note. The way he describes the French and Indian War, again, like war was easy back then, I do feel, because he's just like, well, yeah. So at around like, I feel like it was very Grant, where they're like, yeah, war ended at 5, and then like we made really good beef tongue.
War ended at 5. Absolutely. War was office to the boots. Office hours only. He also, though, his ass was definitely not like volunteering to be in anywhere where he might like have to have seen combat. Like he was always like, and then everyone was like saying who should lead the like local militia, and I was just like, oh no, it couldn't be me. I'll do more of the like inventory dealings between the armies and like send letters to the king and like back to the governors, and like was just always like figuring out a way to just like wiggle out of actually having to do combat.
Okay, to just close out what does he eat, let me read part of this like SNL skit that he writes between, it says dialogue between Ben Franklin and the gout, 1780. Okay, so this is Gout speaking to him. If life is a sedentary one, your amusements, your recreation at least should be active. You ought to walk or ride, or if the weather prevents that, play at billiards. But let us examine your course of life. While the mornings are long and you have leisure to go abroad, what do? Why, instead of gaining an appetite for breakfast, by salutary exercise, you amuse yourself with books, pamphlets, and newspapers, which commonly are not worth the reading. Yet you eat an inordinate breakfast, 4 dishes of tea with cream, and 1 or 2 buttered toasts with slices of hung beef, which I fancy are not things the most easily digested. 4 cups of tea with tons of cream and huge slabs of tongue on
Slices
toast.
of beef. Okay, so I guess like the pescatarianism is over at that point.
Again, hypocrisy.
Yeah. Okay, what does he wear? Not petticoats.
No, I mean, I think his classy keywords like
Waistcoat.
joggers, it's like joggers, like white,
Well, this goes
off-white.
because here's the thing about him is he literally is a graphic designer.
Yeah, and he's like in his like little dime square wire glasses.
Okay, but he's not. I feel like he's a little bit more. I mean, again, he's based in Philadelphia, so I don't think he's as Times Square with his style, and he's more just like wearing his Everlane joggers with like the scrunchy like ankles, and he's just like
No, but I mean,
a
like,
top tier graphic design firm in Philadelphia. But they're wearing.
I'm just saying the glasses.
Yes, the
are, like,
graphics are like
wire.
are kind of Moscot for sure.
He has his like Moscot little wire frames, and then he gets this like really long blazer that he's pairing with the skinnies.
Okay, yes. I mean, I guess yes. And in his time, I mean, he was wearing tails. And cane, I want to say. Definitely in the later years, we had cane.
Yeah, when he needed it. And then like little pointy toe, like bitch shoes.
I mean, the thing is, I think that because he's always saying like, oh,
Again, of the day.
it's of the day. Like for a long time in his career, he was like not going to the tailor at Savile Row in London or like Paris whenever he was in Europe. But like, I think as he made more money off his printings and his magazines and newspapers and his stove hustle, like he was probably going to a tailor at Savile Row and getting like a fairly expensive suit.
Yeah, and I think like as like a stylish graphic designer would be, it's like he got this like really gorgeous kind of the blue blazer with tails that we always see him in. Like he got like one really good blazer and one really good pants.
Yeah, and these are pieces that can last.
Yes, yeah, he wasn't doing fast.
He had a pocket watch inscribed to him from a friend who did die in the
And
West
that was-
Indies.
Well, because he was a loser potter, of course.
Not him. Also, the time when he has his like best friend in London is like teaching at some random primary school in the countryside, and then he tries to fuck that guy's girlfriend, and he's like, and I did like endeavor to make myself overly familiar to her, to which she did reject soundly my advances, and I did hitherto regret such advances, and it profoundly destroyed the friendship.
Oh, and it is so like, okay, your rich inventor friend is coming over, and
Right. And then
she's
he's like
like-
pouring
and
more
it's-
Madeira wine and being like, okay, so Collins is still like in Berkshire, whatever. Like he's not coming back. Like, let's ride this pony.
And it is this like rom-com where Emily Blunt is like flirting, but also like not having it.
Absolutely. Every woman in this book is Emily Blunt, as far
Emily
as I'm
Blunt.
concerned.
I feel like some people could be a little Anna Kendrick, but
Oh, there's some Kendricks up in Philly, for sure. No, that's fair.
okay, how doth he live? So, I mean, the way he puts it is like,
I mean, this is
saying he doesn't need much.
right, because this is the scene where he like is mad at his wife for buying the china. He's like, we kept no idle servants. Our table was plain and simple. Our furniture of the cheapest. For instance, my breakfast was a long time bread and milk, no tea. It's like, okay, because tea is so
Again,
indulgent.
lies, but then
And I ate it out of a 2-penny earthen porringer with a pewter spoon. It's like, okay, the poverty cosplay, can we just simmer down?
well, I think in his like early zine making life, and this is also just so like, hello, like all punks in the 80s,
Yeah.
and now they're all doing fucking
Yeah.
ads for Spotify and Uber, is that like he was this badass zine maker in, you know, the early 1700s, and by 1780 he realizes he's become this like fat 4 tea a morning, 5
Yeah.
tongues, and takes also in his little, he makes fun of himself for riding carriages everywhere, not walking at all. And so
Yeah.
he's like constantly in a car.
No, we become what we once hated, and it's like you and I sit here and we think we're like so fucking cool with our ragtag pod, but soon enough we're gonna be so Chelsea
know?
Handler and like rolling out of bed and getting 7 Ubers to a podcast studio to record like 1 20-minute podcast a month.
Doing so many ads for like the beef tongue Aries that we once made fun of.
I'm like always filming a Netflix pilot, like at the largest like outdoor table.
Okay, who are you in the book?
Damn.
I mean, I will say there's definitely like, I think parts of Franklin to both of us.
Yeah. You know, we can be headstrong, stubborn, arrogant. We love
Absolutely
we love to
arrogant.
gas it up with our fellow like secret society members.
And just be like, ooh, we're closing the curtains and like deciding on the price of silver.
Yeah, and like he literally is such a podcaster.
And I do think we would figure out a way to like not involve ourselves in the Revolutionary War.
Yeah, because he also
Or
says
French.
like, you know, at least in the book so far, or like the memoir up until this point, he's like, doesn't seem like he's so anti-British. He's just kind of being like, he's
No.
pro the colonies being able to defend themselves. Or like, I mean, he's more focused on the French and Indian War, I guess, but it's like, he's not even necessarily questioning like Britain's like dominance.
He's kind of like, how do we make this work better? He also may have like not really realized that they could like be so revolution.
Yeah.
Like I think Hamilton was a little more.
Oh, and now
Again,
you're
all I
such a
know
like
is this-
Hamilton truther because you watch the musical on like Paramount Plus.
Yeah, I watched on Disney Plus. I'm just saying, like Hamilton was being a little more revolution, and I feel like Ben Franklin was like, well, let's figure out like stoves.
I mean, he definitely was doing what was good for herself. Like,
get your bag.
get your
Get your
bag,
stove.
like get your stove bag first, and
But then he has this note in my version that he's like, what I find wrong about the Constitution. He's like, look, bitch, it's not perfect, but like you try getting all these hoes to agree. Like it's as good. Like we did what we needed, and like it's more impressive than anything else like the British could do.
I mean, tea. I'm sorry,
So
no
tea-
tea.
No tea,
Milk-
no tea,
Milk
to
and
tea.
bread
I
water
mean,
only.
I was like, I am definitely eating 3 rolls down a street, and then someone is like, hey, did I see you walking down eating 3 rolls?
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oops.
I love when he throws his friend out the boat who like refuses to row when they're like having to row at the end of this like long ass journey, and the friend is being so annoying and being like, I'm not rowing. And he's like, we're literally throwing you out of the boat. And then the friend is just like kind of swimming alongside and being like, help me. And he's like, are you gonna row? And the friend's just being like, no, I'm not. And then he's just like, fine, then you're not getting back on the boat.
That is so you, because you were a coxswain, and I feel like you would just be like fucking with someone like via rowboat. But neither of us are being like, oh, if you play chess with me, we have to only speak in Italian while we do it. Like we're not such nerds.
Well, I mean,
I don't know. Maybe you are.
Yes.
Actually, you are just being like, we're playing bananagrams in French. Okay, actually, you are Ben Franklin.
I'm pretty nerdy. I've literally been playing Orlog all week, which is a fictional Norse game.
But that almost sounds like too much leisure for Ben Franklin.
Well, you know, it's an exercise of the mind. It involves a great deal of
Okay.
strategy.
Okay, so you're Franklin. I'm partially Franklin, but also like partially his like printing zine workers that are having beer for breakfast.
Yeah. Ale all day.
Ale all day, motherfuckers. Wow.
I mean, what a friggin' journey.
Again? What a journey. I started reading this on Sunday.
I started reading this months ago. I can't believe you fucking mainlined this like a good ass stein of ale.
Yeah, literally. Like
Really
the good
tore
ass
through
Sam
this
Adams
barrel.
scholar I am.
Yeah, I like this book a lot. I think in many ways it's certainly more packed with like plot and detail than Grant's book is. If we're just talking about old ass books we've read.
Yeah, for sure. I was like, he's way more personal. Like we would be chilling with Franklin way more of like straight guys.
Yeah,
And Grant is like silent guy,
yeah.
the silent boyfriend that you're like, oh.
I
God,
mean,
who
Grant's
do you
definitely
want?
talking when he's drunk, but like, yeah, he's being a little
Right,
bit
you're like,
quieter.
wow, Grant like is fun when we went out to that brewery last night. Like I wasn't expecting.
I wasn't expecting.
it.
Yeah, usually he's so
I was
dour. He
just-
actually kind of came out of his shell a little bit.
And Franklin, you're like meeting him at Variety, being like, wait, you're like a botch.
He's literally a botch.
So for honestly old timey memoirs, even though there was like stuff that I was like really bored by, but like with sweeping and electrical like chords, I give it kind of a 4.1. I'm just like, this is a pretty sassy book.
Yeah, I give it like 4 out of 5 iron stoves. I do think, I mean, it's not finished is my issue with it. I'm kind of like, it just kind of stops.
Yeah,
and I'm
I
like,
want more like the script I love.
Yeah, well, I love that. Yeah, and there's like this whole, I mean, all the almanac in the back, which is literally, he's so Susie Orman, and he's just being like, how to save a penny, the way to wealth, like how to get 100 pounds sterling within 6 years or whatever.
Oh yeah, sorry, 4.1 barrels of rum out of 5 barrels of rum.
Sorry, okay, speaking of rum, like one of the pieces of advice on how to save money, this is what's so Susie Orman about him. When you incline to drink rum, fill the glass half with water. Thus, at the year's end, there will be 100,000 pounds more money in your country.
You're like, it's so Susie Orman saying like buy wine and beer and not $10.
But the entire nation should just always water down their rum.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I give it 4 to 5. I would like to hear more about like, the revolution and like more gossip about like Adams and Jefferson and stuff, but
I mean, it is insane that we're like, here's my complaint about this book. It wasn't enough. I want another 400 pages. Sorry, I guess bookworms over
we're
here.
bookworms. We want dusty ass gossip.
But look, there's another book and things are going to get a little more modern next week. We will be reading DMX.
Top dog, dearly departed, rapper, businessman,
Rough Rider.
Actor, DMX.
And his book,
Earl.
Give a dog a bone.
Cool. So,
Okay. So
but
cool. And
stick around for the VIP lounge. We're going to give you all of the dirty details about Nantucket Island from Stephen and Lily's perspectives. Where to go, what to do, who to fuck, what to drink.
Eat, what to drink, who to sail with, what yacht to fuck on. Stay tuned and stay with us and hop on the ferry. Cods up, bitches.
Best. Welcome to the VIP lounge, my ladies. Woo. We are far from New York City. We are in a very different lounge. We are in a salty, salty lounge. We are on the wind-swept, washed ashore, exclusive island of Nantucket, Massachusetts.
Crash. Yeah, this VIP lounge, we're going to be talking all things Nantucket. Lily and Steven's crazy guide to Nantucket. We're talking beaches. We're talking guys. We're talking bookstores. We're talking best lobster rolls.
Let's get right into it. Lily, I know you've spent a lot of time in the island. This is a place for me. It's kind of one of my ancestral homes. I love to come here every summer. And of course, I'm actually even here in the winter right now where it does pop off, as the case may be. And there's a lot of great restaurants, and it can sometimes be kind of almost confusing to know which one should I go to.
It's so hard, especially if you're on vacation and you only have a little bit of time. You want to be hitting the most amazing spots and you don't want to get ripped off because lobster prices, market price, you could get ripped off by a crudo. You know what I mean? So I've never been really ripped off because when I go to Nantucket, I stay with Steven's parents. Let's just say I don't pay for much when I go to the island.
You don't see your wallet the whole time.
It really is that thing where I'm like, did I lose my wallet? Or, it's just been kind of in an old musty drawer for the week.
Yeah, you're like, this is how it must feel like to be the president of the United States.
And I started going out there with you when we were, 14 or something or so? And, to quote my diary where I really detail our early friendship, and we will do on the pod one day, I said, I had a really good time with Stephen in Nantucket, except he's so repressed. That was just a taste of this week's VIP Lounge. To hear the rest of that segment and get another just like it every week, go to patreon.com/CBCthepod and sign up now for only $5 a month. 90 podcasts ago, there once was a podcast named Celebrity Book Club, and it's presented by the Print House, the famous Philadelphia Print House, Prologue Projects. The show is produced by Meg Murnane, who has let's just say she has a little problem with Madeira wine, with editorial support from Leon Nafok. He's my brother, but he passed away in Boston during The First Revolutionary Battle, Andrew Parsons, my favorite horse, and Madeline Kaplan, who keeps a very, very tidy tavern. Our production manager is Percia Verlin. She makes the Madeira wine. Original theme song by Stephen Phillips Horst. He's the town jester. Artwork by Teddy Blanks at Chips NY. He studied in France, actually. Follow us on Twitter at CBC The Pod. Subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Leave us a review, and don't forget to tell your friends about us.